Exactly. Yeah. Still have about another minute before we begin. Oh, you're muted, Nancy.
Yeah, thank you. Sorry. Leslie, I was wondering if it would be appropriate to mention Jim Test, since he was the ED and he died a week ago Thursday.
Oh,
I don't know, up to you, but
yeah. Thank you, Nancy.
sorry to spring it on you last minute, but
No, we can take a moment, maybe before the consent calendar, just to recognize him. Yeah, thank you, Nancy. Well, let's see. It is now 5:30. Let's see. Do we have? We don't have Supervisor Madrone here, but it looks like everyone else is here. So I'll go ahead and do. So we have a quorum. I'll go ahead and take roll call. Welcome everyone to the HWMA board meeting of Thursday, June 9th. And we'll begin with a roll call with Meredith Matthews.
Here.
Hi, Meredith. Elaine Hogan.
Here.
Robin Smith. You're muted, but I read you as saying here.
Present.
Hi, Robin.
Oh.
Frank Wilson.
Here.
And has Supervisor Madrone come in? Oh, okay, so Supervisor Steve Madrone currently absent. Maybe he'll come in later. And with that, and welcoming everyone, I just want to take a moment to honor and recognize Jim Test for his service to the community and the role he played as the director of Humboldt Waste Management Authority. It takes a lot of leadership to keep these organizations moving forward and doing this work for the community. So thank you to that. The community thanks Jim and his family. The organization wouldn't be what it is today without the roles that he played within it. And with that honor, we will move forward to the consent. Does anyone else wish to say anything about Jim, I suppose, before we move on, who had known him? Okay. Nancy?
Well, yeah, I will point out that he was on the very first board of the Waste Management Authority, and he was actually on the board that created the Humboldt County Waste Management Authority that was then dissolved, and then the JPA was recreated as it is now, the Humboldt Waste Management Authority. And then he was executive director for 7 years, plus an additional year, I believe, plus an additional year of support services during transition. So yes, he was very devoted to this agency and this organization. I know Elder overlapped with him. I see Elder's on.
Oh.
Thanks for that, Nancy.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Anyone else on the board or otherwise wish to say a little something?
What do I do?
Elder would like to say something. He's not as great with Zoom.
No problem.
No, I just wanted to say we're going to miss Jim, and I wanted to go see him before he passed, but got some family issues at home of my own I had to take care of, and I didn't get a chance. I'm going to miss Jim, I worked for him the whole time he was the ED. I got along good with Jim. I'm going to miss him.
Thanks, Alder.
You're welcome.
And thanks for being here.
You're welcome.
We'll just take a couple breaths before we move on, just to let that sit in the space for a moment. And with that tribute, we will move on to the consent calendar. I would like to pull the item E from the consent calendar, authorizing executive director to negotiate to acquire real property located at 3749 West End Road. Just because it was a new item to me, and I just wanted to learn a little bit more about it. So did anyone else wish to pull anything from the consent calendar? Okay, so we're looking for a motion to approve for everything except item E.
Sure, I'll make a motion to approve the consent calendar, A through D. Do I need to read everything out? No, cheers.
You do.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Director Matthews and Director Smith, seconding. Does anyone wish to make comment or ask any questions about the consent calendar? Okay, all in favor? Oh, I think I need to do a roll call vote, sorry. Before Nancy pipes in. Director Hogan.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Aye.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
And is Director Madrone here? Yeah, no, okay. And I also vote aye, so motion passes unanimously with Director Madrone absent. And we will move on to item E, which is authorized executive director to negotiate to acquire real property located at 3749 West End Road, Arcata, California, 95521, APN 507-081-036 for relocation of Eureka Recycling Center. Price and terms discussed in closed session per government code 54956.8. So we won't be discussing price or terms, but just the item in general and some kind of background and an opportunity for board members or the public to ask questions. And I'll turn it over to you, Director Fuller.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And with my apologies to the board, I realize this came at the last minute and I wanted to get it out there before we did, but it is here now. The reason being this was in our search for a viable piece of property to which we can relocate the ERC. This was right now the most attractive and some sense is the only player in the game. So I wanted to get it on the agenda. Apologies if it confused anyone. This property is located where it says it is at 3749 West End Road. In your packet should be two graphics. One of them's just a Google map showing the exit on Yintoli to West End Road, and then you make a hard U-turn and come off 299, come down there to West End Road and then West End Court. The photograph, the Google Earth map, is an aerial of the actual property showing where it's located at the end of that little corner. And the advantage is that this is a property that's currently in foreclosure. A gentleman was in the marijuana business and it didn't work out. He put a lot of work into it, did a lot of improvements. In terms of the properties available to us, it's very attractive because it's, Eric, jump in here if this is not correct, but I believe we're permitted okay for the operation we want to do, which is our recycling center. It has a lot of space, it has a lot of land, it has advantages that would include possibly one-way traffic in and out for the customers and also the trucks that need to bring loads in and out or ship in and out. It has also the potential for the future, possibly, should we decide to bring ERC back to this site, it could be repurposed for organics. We don't know. But the bottom line is it's a very attractive piece of property, and that's why I'd like to request the board authorize me at the time to negotiate for it. Any questions, please ask.
Director Fuller, as a point of correction, we have not started any of the permitting process.
Oh, we have not. Okay, I
Director
apologize.
Fuller is talking about the zoning of the parcel itself. So the
Oh.
zoning would allow the activities that we plan on having at the facility, but we have not started any undertaking about permitting. We have reached out to City of Arcata Planning, and we have discussed our potential options with the site, and it's zoned appropriately for those activities.
Okay, so there will be now 2 recycling centers in Arcata. That's what I'm understanding? I'm sorry, and I was very, very sick during the last meeting, so.
No, absolutely. So what Hambro only specializes in CRV.
Okay.
They do not accept Freon appliances, e-waste, TVs. This recycling center in Arcata would be more of a hard to recycle item recycling center. So we would focus more on items that are difficult for residents of Humboldt County to dispose of currently, that either have honestly 1 or only 2 other disposal options, where Hambro is specializing in just certified redemption recycling.
Thank you for the clarification. That's great, because I was going to bring up e-waste, and I'm really, really glad that that there will be a place for that. So thank you for the clarification.
Director Wilson, I see you unmuted. Did you want to make a comment?
Yeah, I was just asking it. I'm trying to view it from the picture in the Google. Is this a little sawmill that used to be there, or some kind of little wood manufacturing plant?
I believe it's adjacent. Eric, jump in here, but is it not adjacent to a current mill? Aren't they doing mill operations right next to it?
Yeah, the parcel lies in between Lindgren Lumber Sawmill and 190 or 101. So it's the parcel that's in between the sawmill and the highway.
Is that is the sawmill the old Mission Fence sawmill?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. At one time, a long time ago, the sawmill owned the entire property. And at some point in time, it was parceled out. And the sawmill still remains next to this parcel. That is correct.
It's next to, I think Brett has it now, but it's was Mission Fence.
I believe so.
Okay, that puts it in my mind where it is. Thank you. That's all I have.
Thanks, Director Wilson. Anyone else on the board wish to ask a question? I'm just going to ask, what's the square footage?
We're right around 2 acres. Yes, Eric?
That is correct. I don't have the covered square footage off the top of my head, but we're currently assessing the viability of what operations we could fit inside the footprint, and what additions we could make to the property to ensure we encompass all current activities that we're going to be moving over there.
And do you think the acreage would be enough to allow for, like building material reuse center or anything like that?
Yeah, so one of the benefits of this property compared to a couple of the other properties we've looked at is the potential for expansion. So right now with the current covered footprint, we believe that we can get almost all activities that we currently have at the Eureka Recycling Center at that location under cover, with a pretty extensive amount of the property left over for continued expansion, whether that means transitioning tires, carpet, mattresses to that location so that we take a little bit of the traffic stress away from the Hawthorne Street transfer station, and move that to a location that's a little bit better suited to encompass that it's recycling. It's no longer, those items are no longer being disposed of, they're being recycled. And so having those go to a location that better exemplifies that activity would be good just for education outreach purposes as well.
Thank you. And just curious, I'm imagining that, this was the preferred site out of a number of sites, just in terms of, I know it puts it a little further from Eureka. So I'm just thinking of, people driving back and forth and things like that. But I'm imagining that you looked at sites throughout the county or throughout the north part of the county.
We've looked and haven't found any that, we found one that was, it was not in the north part of the county. It was in fact farther up in Arcata, a little farther up north on West End Road, and it was not suitable for our needs. As to Eureka proper, no, we haven't found any that are suitable.
That is a really good point, Director Castellano, and thank you for bringing that up. That is a really far way to go, and a lot of greenhouse gas emissions going to be burned going from, south to Arcata, but thank you.
Do any members of the public wish to make comment on this item? Let's see, looking for any hands raised. Okay, don't see any hands raised, so we will close public comment and bring it back to the board for discussion. Are there any comments about this?
Okay, I guess I'll make a motion to authorize the executive director to negotiate to acquire real property located at 3749 West End Road, Arcata. APN 507-081-036 for relocation of Eureka Recycling Center, price and terms to be discussed in closed session for Government Code 54956.8.
Would anyone like to second that motion or have
I'll
discussion?
second that motion.
Thank you, Director Wilson and Director Matthews. And before we call it, I just want to say, I think my biggest concern is, of course, just the location. I mean, I think I can see why there might be benefits in a, kind of slightly more industrial type of area, but I do think that, look at population centers and, folks from Southern Humboldt and things like that, having to drive that extra distance. I guess I just wish it was a little bit more located, but I understand also the difficulty. I guess just one more question before the vote. There's some urgency around this, or some just sense that like we want to do this sooner, as soon as possible.
Yes.
Didn't I read that we're going to cease recycling e-waste soon at the Eureka location? So I do think it's kind of a matter of urgency. And I also think that maybe further on down the road, we can work to arrange like collections from places south for people all to get together and load up on one vehicle and take everybody's down at once. That's definitely something that I would like to work on.
Thanks, I agree. Oh, Kelly, Eric, do you want to add something?
Thank you, Chairwoman Castellano. Just for the board's information, HWMA in the past has held several of these type of collection location events. Generally, we do them in the more rural areas. They focused around white goods, which is your appliances, Freon and non-Freon appliances. We do e-waste events. In the past, we've done several. I believe we still do one annually in Rio Del as part of a grant that they receive. And then obviously we did HHW activities as well. Generally, we do them in rural areas. Orleans, we've done one, Southern Humboldt, Redway, stuff like that. But there's nothing that says we could not hold events
Yes.
in any of our participating jurisdictions if that's something that the board would like us to look into as well. So we do have the capacity to do that, and we have done that in the past, so that is an option.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
So,
Okay.
should I amend my my motion to also include directing the board to look into other collection events, or should that just be like we make that the separate situation?
I mean, I think it's up to you. I think you could, you could keep your motion as it is, and we could kind of just give a general direction. Maybe I'll just kind of look for nods. Do other members of the board have a desire to see more kind of remote or pop-up collection events that could help facilitate maybe that transportation issue and give service to more rural locations? Okay. All right, it seems like there's a general agreement towards that. Okay, thanks. And with that, we'll go ahead and vote. Director Matthews,
Yes.
Director Hogan,
Yes.
Director Smith,
Yes.
thank you, and Director Wilson.
Yes.
Thanks, Director Wilson. And I also vote yes. Motion passes unanimously. Director Madrone absent. Thank you. And we will move on to oral and written communications. This time is provided for people to address the board or to submit written communications concerning matters not on this agenda. Board members may respond to statements, but any request that requires board action will be referred to staff for review. Reasonable time limits may be imposed on both the total amount of time allocated for this item and on the time permitted to each individual speaker. Such time allotment or portion thereof shall not be transferred to other speakers. Do any members of the public wish to make public comment on anything not on the agenda? I don't see any hands up. Director Fuller, have we received any written communication?
I have not, no.
Okay, thank you. And with that, let me just check one more time. Yep, I will close public comment or oral and written communications period and move on to item number 4, HWMA restructure, creating an accounting manager position, eliminating the director of finance and administrative services position, and approving a new organizational chart. Director Fuller.
Thank you, Chairman Castellano and board. I'm going to go ahead and read from the staff report that I put together on this. And the gist is that the administrative services director position has become both cumbersome and unrealistic. Under the existing job description, the person in this role has historically been responsible for all accounting and financial functions. This includes budgeting and forecasting, audit liaison and oversight, information technology or IT, human resources or HR, general office admin functions, as well as scheduling and supervision of the Scalehouse Group, purchasing, procurement and sourcing, contracts administration, programs, and all matters pertaining to board protocols. Effective staffing going forward requires the accounting and administrative functions be separated. I'm proposing, therefore, to eliminate the admin services director position and create an accounting manager position. Once the accounting and financial functions have been streamlined, the next goal will be to consider how to best assign and position for all the administrative, non-financial functions of the authority. And under discussion, I have written simply that the greatest need currently is for a competent accountant. A person skilled in both public accounting and management is critical. The proposed accounting manager job description attached to the staff report delineates the requirements of this position commensurate with our needs. The attached organizational chart and corresponding pay and step classifications show the reporting hierarchy to include creation of a manager level, and this would be below the director level and above the supervisory level. This accounting manager position will be a salary position, range 36, step 1, starting pay at $79,031 annually. Fiscal impact would be an immediate annual savings of $10,386, which is the difference between what we need to pay an incoming director in that position under the old description and what I'm proposing to pay as a start to the person coming in as the accounting manager. Attached are the job description I have drafted, the existing Director of Finance and Administrative Services description, and a new organizational chart, including pay range and step classification.
Thank you, Director Fuller. Do any members of the board wish to ask questions about this item?
So the accounting manager would report to then you or?
Yes. Yes. And under the new org chart, I've addressed that hierarchy where there's executive director level under which there would be 2 directors. And then the new tier would be manager between director and supervisor. So I would have a total of 5 direct reports on that org chart.
Yeah, I mean, the job description for the administrative services director that's a beast.
Capital B beast, I concur. So in vetting that, my first concern was, and based on experience and talking to peers and others in similar organizations and some private, some public sector, to have someone, I mean, we're not a Fortune 500,000 employee organization, obviously. We're a small public entity. However, to try to have one person do both the administrative functions, and all of you know this respectfully, in what you do and what we do, public entities, there's probably a lot more paperwork, a lot of dotting I's and crossing T's and things that need to be done. Somebody who can do that administratively very, very well is not necessarily competent in accounting, and vice versa. If the money's right, and we know that going forward, that's, to me, in my mind, something very important to always be showing the board and the public. We have the money, we're doing the money right. And then we can phase in how to do an administrative function after that.
Yeah.
In other words, I agree. Thank you.
Yeah, I work at it. I mean, my other job is a JPA, so I absolutely understand, the struggles of this. But I just want to make sure that you will be okay without all these other tasks.
Well, I will give a shout out to everyone currently who has been working very hard since I've stepped in, and I'm sure under Jill's tenure as well, since this phase in started. We're dotting the I's and crossing the T's, and there are many of us spinning a lot more plates and wearing a lot more hats. And again, I think everyone's familiar with that. We're getting it done. That can't last forever. It cannot hold together. But again, the immediate need is accounting. But yes, we're okay in the interim for the admin functions.
Well, I will just wish you very good luck. I know that there are a lot of people hiring finance people right now. We are, City of Arcata is, there's several finance positions out. It's a tough market up there. So
Yes.
good luck.
Thank you. That is heartfelt and appreciated.
Most heartfelt way. Absolutely.
Thanks, Director Matthews. Any other members of the board have questions?
I had just one brief question.
Please.
Director Fuller, do you anticipate that we would be having to hire anybody additional to cover the administrative tasks, or that you can ferret those out amongst the existing employees?
I'm always thank you. I'm always a proponent of, okay, we need to start where we are. Who are the people that have worked here and understand the organization the best now internally? Are any of those people viable candidates for moving into a position that would take more on more administrative responsibilities? I don't know yet, but that's my first step is always, who do we have now, and what are the interests, and do those interests intersect our needs? If not, then ultimately I would like to create a new position. Yes, if it becomes necessary and obvious that, okay, things are not, we would need that. But right now, no. That's my vision for the future. Right now, I want an accountant in here who can do the job, and then we'll see about the administrative function.
All right, thank you.
Yes.
Let's see, I had just a quick question in terms of, to Director Matthews' point that, this can be a tough position to fill. Do you feel like, there's enough coverage of this work, until the position is filled?
Yes. And I will also say Jane Nelson is on the call, and Jane has been, with the title of accounting clerk, she's been more than a clerk to me, especially in the recent weeks. Jane is skilled in accounting herself, holds a degree in it, has very graciously worked with me not only on QuickBooks, but in accounting basics so that we understand that the books are right until we can get some in here working with our auditor in the interim and get somebody else in here to say, okay, I'm the accountant now. Yeah, you guys are basically doing it okay. To answer your question, yes. But in the long term, no. I will need an accounting person in here who can really do the accounting. In my accounting courses that I took way back centuries ago, I very much respect and admire the science of accounting, but I am not the guy to sit in front of a spreadsheet and make sure the debits and credits balance. That's why I want somebody in here who can do that. So that's what I'm looking for.
Thank you. Any other questions from the directors? Director Hogan.
Yeah, just a quick question about how this affects the budget that we discussed last month or the month before. Is this something that was planned for next fiscal year, or what impact will it have on the budget?
Well, the impact is that it saves us $10,000 over the next fiscal because I no longer have a director of administrative services on the payroll. That person was released during probationary period. So I have that vacancy to fill. I'm proposing to fill it at a lower tier that we will create with the board's approval and put a manager person in there. And so the effect on the budget is in fact favorable at this point.
And to Director Hogan's question.
I mean, I'm sorry, does that make sense? I didn't.
For me, I think just the follow-up question would be if we need to hire a second person, will that have kind of a long-term effect on the budget?
Yes, it would. And I would have to propose that.
Okay, thank you.
I would not, I want to meet the immediate need and then see, okay, where are we administratively? Is a second person really necessary, or within the current structure, are the folks we have on staff able to either step up or accommodate it, or what do we need to do? At this time, I don't know, but yes, Madam Chairwoman, to your question, if it becomes necessary to staff for another position, yes, it would have a fiscal impact. And at that time, I'd have to present numbers to the board.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions from the board? Okay, we'll open it up for any comments from the public. I see no one raising their hand. Okay, we will close the comments on that and bring it back to the board. Any discussion from the board, or additional questions or thoughts, or would someone like to entertain a motion?
All right, I'll make a motion to create an accounting manager position, eliminate the director of finance and administrative services position, and approve new organizational chart.
I'll second that motion.
Okay, that's a motion by Director Matthews and seconded by Director Hogan. Okay, I will go ahead and any other comments that anyone wants to make? Okay, Director Matthews.
Aye.
Director Hogan.
Yes.
Director Smith.
Aye.
Director Wilson.
Yes.
And I also vote yes. And Director Madrone absent. Motion passes unanimously with Director Madrone absent. And we will move on to item number 5, standing item CRV and recycling update, and a presentation by Allison Hochlimba for Our Planet.
There she is. Welcome.
Hey.
Hey, good to see you. I don't think I'm giving a CRV update, but I'd love to share out about our education work.
Well, it's the closest category, so I fit you in under item 5, but
Oh,
absolutely.
okay, great.
Since I've worked with you now long enough to know you're certainly one of the champions of all things recycled. So have at it. You have the floor.
Okay, great. Thank you. Hi, everyone. Hi, directors. What a lovely evening we're gathered here for. Director Fuller asked me to share out with you all about what we do in our education program, which is funded by the HWMA.
Yes.
And so I'm going to share my screen with you and walk you through a little bit about what it is that we do over these years and where we're going. Let's see. So 4R Planet is in the 4 Rs: reduce, reuse, recycle, and rot. So we are doing recycling education in the community. And if I'm not quite sure what everyone's background is, but just to get you up to speed on where we've been in terms of recycling education, Arcata Community Recycling Center kicked things off back in the early 1990s with a program they called Order of the Dragon. And then in 2002 began doing recycling education programs in classrooms in public schools. Then in 2004, the program really expanded. I came on board at that point as a credentialed teacher. So yes, I've been doing this work in our community since 2004. And that organization came to a close in 2012. And at that point, throughout those years, we're reaching 5,000 to 10,000 students annually with our education efforts in classrooms. And we held individual contracts to do this work with the cities of Blue Lake, Eureka, Fortuna, Rio Dell, Trinidad, and then with the HWMA to reach schools in the unincorporated areas of the county. So since that time, since 2012, well, kicking up again in 2013, we have held a contract with the HWMA to kind of pick up where that work left off and keep bringing these programs to schools throughout the county. And so we do this work throughout the member jurisdictions, so pretty much everywhere in the county except Fortuna. And currently we are visiting between 63 and 80 classrooms annually. And this number is quite variable depending on whether we are visiting a class remotely or in person, because schools are doing both things right now still. And it takes a lot more time and energy to go to a classroom in person. So less of those, more if they're remote. So before that time though, our lesson series was comprehensive. We offered programs for kindergarten through 8th graders on the topics of recycling and composting, natural resources, and also solid waste. But we also took a look at litter out of place or trash out of place, and did a program also about the Pacific Garbage Patch.
Yeah.
And if you go to Recology out on the peninsula and you see that large space that overlooks the sorting floor, that was our education space at one point. So we had school groups out there for field trips. So with the pandemic pivot, like so many people have had to make, we switched, we really truncated what we were offering and switched it up to be able to have some online versions of our in-class programs. And so we have streamlined things down to 4 parts of this newly comprehensive program. And so this is what we have been doing this past year and are planning to do in the year ahead. And so in part 1 of this program, which is really like the nitty-gritty recycling waste reduction training, where we talk about all the materials that go into your trash can and go into your recycle bin, the 4 Rs, we really emphasize that our choices every day with what passes through our hands make a big difference in terms of what we choose to purchase and use, and also what we do with them when they're ready to be discarded. And we have so many choices. And so we use examples that are super relevant to kids' lives. Applesauce, for example. There are so many different choices that you have, even when choosing how to enjoy a tasty snack like applesauce.
Wow.
And then the second part of this is we talk about where is this place away when you throw it away or you recycle it away. And this is also a remote program where we follow the path of a choice that this third grader is making by choosing to toss the empty cereal box in either the trash can or the recycle bin. And I'm going to take you on this tour in just a moment after I give you the overview here. And then we get into composting as an in-person program. And for the littlest kids, we talk about this in terms of compost critters and who are the ones that are actually doing the work of like the world's most amazing magic trick of turning your food scraps into beautiful soil amendment. And so we actually go through the steps of that process and then allow them to explore from a healthy compost bin and identify the different creatures that are in there. And for a little bit older kids, we do a program called Cooking Up Compost, where we use an analogy like it's a cooking process. You have certain ingredients, you have to go through certain steps in the process. They undergo changes, it heats up, it looks different at the end, and really teach them about the whole process there. And then they're also identifying who the fungi, bacteria, and invertebrates are that are in there doing that work for us. And then part 4, an in-person program, is we actually go through the steps of what happens when something is recycled. So we take paper from the classroom recycling bin and we create a mini recycling factory in their classroom. And the students make finished new paper at the end that they can use for new purposes from the stuff that they had put in the recycling bin. So over the past year, what did we do? Well, we did 32 of the remote classroom visits and 38 of the in-person visits. And these numbers are, we have an agreement with you all based on a price per classroom visit. So this was just maxing out our budget with you all to be able to provide as many visits as we could. And here is where we went. So schools in Eureka, Arcata, Cutton, McKinleyville, Bayside, and we reached 1,308 students this year with that work. And then an add-on for schools that are interested is that we also provide school assistance in terms of waste reduction. So I will go to a school and I will meet with the administrators, the kitchen staff, the custodial staff, motivated teachers, motivated students, motivated parents. We all group up together and we basically walk around the school and do some simplistic waste characterization of where things are accumulating in different areas of the school. And we look for initially the low-hanging fruit in terms of waste reduction. And then we can get more complicated with it. It's different at each school. You can imagine some are much more involved with their recycling and waste reduction efforts than others. But in terms of the low-hanging fruit, here is what Humboldt County's average trash can looks like for residential use. 23% of that is paper. We could be recycling a whole lot more paper. And then 42% of that are your organics. So I know that that's a big topic right now. And so with that, I am going to share a little virtual, a truncated version of our virtual school tour. I can find my file here. And where's my share screen? Oh. Sorry, got a little tricky with the sharing of multiple presentations here. Okay, there we go. So I just want to give you a sense of the flavor of what we're offering to students around the county here and what you're supporting. So thank you for that. So here you go. You have your choice. What are you going to do, lovely third grader, with your empty cereal box? One choice, it turns out, takes that cereal box to a dead end location in its lifespan. The other choice keeps the fibers that cereal box is made out of in circulation. So choice number one, here's his first choice. So what happens here? We get this truck that picks it up. Turns out it's on a one-way street here. Takes it over to the transfer station. And we show them about how things get weighed. Everything gets weighed in and out. And over to the tipping floor. So we do include a lot of video snippets here to give them a sense of what it's really like there. You know, this is in lieu of bringing them along for an in-person tour. And we talk about how the tipping floor is a place where things get moved around. It's not called the dump, it's called the transfer station. And transfer means to move things from one location to another. And so because of their initial training, this is, you know, part two. After part one, they've got their goggles on and are able to identify what should not be put in the waste stream. So I show them this pile of what came in, and they are initially pointing to things that should not be there. Show them how things get moved around and how this is what happens to those materials, that 14 trucks per day are being filled with our community's trash. That's a lot of stuff. And that they are filled until they reach their weight capacity, and then they are transferring those materials on out of there. And where are they going? They are heading north through all these towns that we know, across the state border up to the Dry Creek landfill near Medford, Oregon. Wait, how long does that take? 4 hours and 6 minutes? That's quite a haul. So what does a landfill look like? Looks pretty peaceful. We give them a tour. And what happens there? Well, this is the actual truck that left the HWMA, and all that trash it was carrying gets dumped out. And then these vehicles' job is to move that around, to fill the cells in the landfill, to compact it as much as possible. And they are looking at this action here. And again, they are recognizing things that should not be there. Oh, I see cardboard. I see plastic bottles, whatever it is. So this is a really important part, I feel like, for children to see where their things actually go. Truck's empty. Now what? It's got to head all the way back to Eureka. Empty. Returns on that trip. Will the materials stay in the landfill where it is a dead end? But what if our third grader here had made an alternate choice? Into the blue bin appears to be the same sort of truck picking it up, but this time those materials remain in circulation. And it turns out they're not even going that far initially to be sorted out. They're headed over to Samoa, and I love to point out where the school is, you know, in Humboldt County, so we make it very customized that way. And students know this spot because it's right near the pulp mill, which is a very iconic building out on the coast there. And, you know, if you're in the know, you call this the MRF. So we teach them a little jargon there, which is fun. And again, things are all coming over the scales. They're getting dumped on a different sort of floor. And we take a look at how much stuff gets stuffed into one of these trucks. It's amazing. And, you know, kids really have the misconception that because they're seeing the same kind of truck pick up the trash as the recycling, that it's all getting thrown away. So this is like blowing their misconceptions out the door. And for scale, so at one point in time, we did bring kids on tours right here to be next to these giant piles to see what happens to their stuff when they put it in the bin. And again, you know, they've got their trained goggles on, and so they're identifying what should not be here. The training is working. And we show them then what happens to this stuff. Now what? And the most important part, I feel like, is that they see that it is members of their community who are handling these materials. And so I just let them have it sort of full volume, big screen, get the full experience here.
Wow.
It's a tough job, and it's people in our community, again, that are using by hand sorting these materials out. And oftentimes what they're pulling out, we see, is trash away from the recycling, which is why we teach them in the first session that when you're in doubt of if you should recycle it or not, to throw it out. Because if you're just passing trash along, someone here is going to have to pull that trash away from your recycling. And that bay right there was just all trash. So it really adds up. And that's really the message too, is that all of these little bits that you are recycling really do add up. And again, they're seeing this and they're noting the plastic bags that shouldn't be there. And we talk about why that's hazardous for people working at this spot. They don't know what's going to be in the plastic bag if they open it. It could be something dangerous for them. Take a look around the whole facility. We look at people working on the container sort line. Another tough job.
Jack, I'm talking about my place.
Plenty of women are doing this job too. And I'll zoom ahead here, but we look at what happens to these materials as they're baled up, which is exciting to see bales being born from the baling machine, and that this is the entity that leaves the MRF. So we look at how big those are, and
Wow.
If you look closely, you can note all the different small bits of things that were just choices people made to recycle those. And all the different categories of materials that leave the MRF. And what happens to them after this? Well, they head out on trucks and they go to different factories where the materials will actually get turned into new things. So if we're following paper along, a little sneak peek inside a paper recycling factory, and it turns out the process there is following along the same steps as when we will visit their classroom and actually make paper with them. So it's blended, it's rolled flat, it's dried, and then you have new sheets that can be turned into new things of all sorts. Those materials are kept alive, going around the cycle, kept in circulation. And who knows what they might turn into, perhaps your favorite cake mix.
Beautiful.
So that's a little bit about what we do, and I'd love to answer any of your questions if you have them. And we are looking forward to providing this same sequence of lessons for students around the county in this coming year at the same rough quantity. It looks like we're going to have about the same budget to do that. And thanks again for supporting this work.
Thank you. Director Fuller, did you want to add something?
Yeah, Allison, I know we spoke about this, but you've been doing this for a number of years in the schools, yes?
This is true.
So would it be the students that were a little teeny tiny that are now not so teeny tiny, do you think they've taken this lesson with them and are they recycling, or do you know?
Well, it's hard to know, but we do have relationships with some schools where we may come and visit them as kindergartners in this one particular classroom, then again as third graders, then again as fifth graders. And, you know, they really remember what we've done before. And so it's great to circle back to things. I also do all sorts of work in the community as an environmental educator, and kids remember, they remember it. They remember the big piles. They remember when they made paper. And really one of the best signs that we get that we know it's working is when we get thank you letters back from the students that say something like, I had so much fun making paper with you, and now I taught my mom about this and we recycle at home.
There we go.
So, you know, that's really what we look for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That's good.
And it varies at the schools too, because like we're also doing this to help really kickstart a sluggish recycling program at the school, or to, in many cases, start something new. Maybe it's a new composting program with the cafeteria, or even a new recycling program altogether. So different schools that we visit year after year, sometimes they need another shot of us, you know, to kind of like reinvigorate what's happening if maybe the person on site who was super motivated about it has passed to something else.
Sure. Excellent.
Director
Yes, Allison, when you put up the list of schools visited, they were all central Humboldt County, the metropolis, as it were, Eureka, Arcata, McKinleyville. No mention of Ferndale, Riodale, Scotia. Is that just an accident of your most recent visits, or is there a separate program for the smaller schools? Because it does seem as if there was a lot of centralization in your listing there.
Well, we would love to visit Fortuna. My husband has been a teacher in Fortuna for the past 20 years, but that is not part of our contract to visit Fortuna. In the past, we have worked really extensively with Riodale, actually, and totally started up a great recycling program, the schools there. We've been out to Whitethorn, we've been to Redway, we've done a lot of work with Oric, Trinidad, we've been out to even Hoopa and Orleans. We've been all over the place. I think it was just a factor of this year, and it was really an odd year for schools because they were really hopping back into school after the distance learning that occurred, not everywhere, but nearly everywhere around the county. So, yeah, so it varies by year.
Yeah, sounds more like serendipity. You ever get to the North Pole?
I would love to go there.
She'll go if she can, I'm telling you.
Yeah.
Hopefully it's still covered with ice when I get there.
Yeah.
Good point.
I had a just quick question. Do you also, there's been so many changes to the recycling industry. Do you talk with the kids about those changes and how recycling doesn't have, or, isn't always the solution that maybe we thought it once was?
Oh, absolutely. And that's why it's like the third tier solution, behind reduce and reuse. So we taught those are what we should do first. Yeah. I mean, especially with the plastics, Yeah. And that you can't, a big thing is like wishful recycling, that we just can't do that. And we use like a basic, usually the teacher is going to have like a to-go coffee cup on their desk. And so we'll dissect all the different parts of it, the plastic lid, the wax cup, the sleeve that goes on it. And that really, when you're making what seems like a simple choice, for a kid, they're getting like a hot cocoa or something at Ramone's and they're getting that to-go cup with all those pieces on it, that it's actually like a lot more complicated than you would have realized, figuring out where those materials go. And if you just bring your own cup, then, that's quite the savings and quite the workload savings too, in terms of all the people that handle that along the way. In the transportation, all those things.
Definitely. Do any other board members have a question? This is a report. I don't know but do any members of the public want to make comment on this item? Seeing none, we'll close that. Thank you so much for this work. It's really valuable.
Yes.
I could definitely see like an advocacy component, like having the kids write to the, cow recycles or, to their city council members or something like that. I think it is, because there's so much we can do within like our own personal choices. But again, that opportunity to have kids look at like systemic choices and how, sometimes we have to change the system so that we can make better personal choices. I could just see that as being kind of an interesting component of that as well.
Yeah, I would love to explore that option. And especially if you see any opportunities coming up where youth voices would be important to be included, please do reach out about that.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I know at the City of Eureka, we're bringing our zero waste program to council, kind of in a series of steps, but it could be interesting to have, youth voices at that, kind of thinking about that and how cities, participate in this sense of like waste reduction and what that could look like. I'll reach out to you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Anything else from the board? Okay. Thank you. Thanks so much for being here.
Yes,
Thank you all.
thank you.
You're welcome.
And we will move on to item number 6, standing item SB 1383 update.
We have both Eric Keller-Heckman, Director of Operations, and Evan Edgar at the ready. So I will let Eric go ahead and give a brief update. If there are questions that need to come to Evan's wheelhouse, by all means, he's here to help. So Eric, go ahead.
Thank you, Director Fuller. Yeah, we just wanted to give a brief update. We are currently online and on schedule with what was presented to the board at the last HWMA meeting. HWMA staff and Edgar and Associate staff will be meeting with the local Humboldt County LEA next week to discuss the permitting process and the amendments needed for the Hawthorne Street transfer station. HWMA staff has begun to assess the infrastructure needs of the Eureka Recycling Center and what's going to take to transform that to the organics processing facility. And right now, everything is currently on track with no change to the timeline that was presented last month.
Thank you. Evan Edgar, did you want to add anything, or does that kind of speak to?
Well, thank you, directors. Yeah, we started this in January with a kickoff meeting, and 5 months later, I think that your board made some command decisions last month. A lot of good leadership there to be show a level of substantial compliance, so that Cal Recycle knows that what's going on here is a good effort to comply with 1383. At Cal Recycle, there's going to be a new liaison. Spencer Fine is going to take another county, and Kathleen Strictly will be your new liaison. And she understands this is a substantial effort. So great work by staff and good leadership to be on track to get 1383 compliance in.
Thank you. That's good news. Any questions from any members of the board? Okay. We will keep moving on. Thanks to you both for being here and for everyone's work to move that forward with such expedience. To standing item number 7, board member reports. Anything that members of the board wish to report tonight? Okay. I don't have anything to report. I don't see anyone jumping forward. Okay. We will close that item and move on to item number 8, the executive director's report.
I have nothing other than what we're about to discuss in closed session and what we've already covered. So nothing specifically.
Okay, thanks, Director Fuller. And with that, that brings us to item number 9, which is a closed session item because it's related to negotiation and price and terms. So I'll just read this and give the public a chance to make comment if you'd like to make comment before we go into closed session. And Nancy, let me know if I make any mistakes here. So item number 9, it is the intention of the Board of Directors to meet in closed session for one item, which is real property, negotiation for purchase of real property pursuant to Government Code 54956.8. The property is 3749 West End Road, Arcata, California, 95521, APN 507081036. HWMA negotiator is the executive director, and the negotiation will be price and terms. And for members of the public who are here, that is the item we pulled from the agenda earlier, so you got to learn a little bit more about it then. Do any members of the public wish to make comment on this item before we go into closed session? Okay, I don't see anyone jumping forward. So we'll go ahead and close that. And then we're going to move into closed session. And then we will make a report out of closed session afterwards if any decisions are made, or whether or not any decisions are made. But I will ask folks to start exiting the Zoom room as we go into closed session.
Director Fuller, you are now the host, so you have control of the meeting.
Thank you. All right, and
We'll just give folks a couple moments to find their way out.
I was gonna say that, well, let's get the studio control room out, but Eric could have stayed on because he's been working
okay.
on this project.
Peter, you could
Access Humboldt and Robin. Robin, are you still on the call? I'm showing you on the screen.
I feel like maybe she's not by her computer. Let me text her real quick.
Okay.
Oh. Hey, Robin, can you?
Hi. Sorry, my dog was barking at someone outside. I had to go tend to him. I will be leaving. Sorry about that. Bye.
Bye, Robin. Okay. Let's see. This is the studio control room going to exit also. Director Hogan,
Click on
you're
the little.
while you're gone. We you didn't find anyone, did you?
Yeah, Cynthia's here. Are we out of closed session?
All right.
Well, yeah, we can. We're gonna
Okay.
close session.
Sorry. We had a little technical challenge. Cynthia Evans is now back in the meeting.
All right.
Okay.
Hi, Cynthia. Welcome back. So we're reporting out of closed session that we've directed Director Fuller to work with a real estate professional. We've established an ad hoc committee consisting of Elaine Hogan and myself, Leslie Castellano. And we've asked that Nancy Diamond participate in the future discussions regarding potential real estate transactions. Okay, and that is, we have nothing else to report. Thank you, everyone. This meeting is now adjourned.
Thank you.
Leslie.
Thank you all.
Have a good night.